Call to order the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District special meeting, Tuesday, December 19th at the Fairfield Inn and Suites meeting room. Roll call, please.
Director Baucom.
Here.
Director Marshall.
Present.
Director Whiff.
Here.
Vice Chair Reed.
Here.
Chair McKenna.
Present. No flag for the Pledge of Allegiance? Did we forget that? Okay, we forgot that. So public expression. The board welcomes participation in the board meetings. Comments shall be limited so that everyone may be heard. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the board which are not posted on the agenda and items which have not already been considered by the board. The board limits testimony on matters not on the agenda to 3 minutes per person and no more than 10 minutes for a particular subject at the discretion of the chair of the board. No action will be taken. Individuals wishing to address the board on items on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so when the item is addressed by the board. The board limits testimony on matters on the agenda, again, to 3 minutes per person, not more than 10 minutes per particular subject. In addition, this will be enforced. You will kindly be notified at 2 minutes and 30 seconds and when your 3 minutes is up. As a board, we cannot tolerate outbursts from the gallery disrupting our meeting. If you cannot control your actions, you will be asked to leave. We cannot tolerate talking in the gallery and disrupting our meeting. If you must have a conversation, please step outside. As a board, we cannot tolerate members of the gallery approaching members and staff of this board during our board meetings and attempting to have conversations with them during meetings. The Ukiah Valley Sanitation District Policy Number 5030.5 states, willful disruption of any of the meetings of the Board of Directors shall not be permitted. If the board chair finds that there is in fact willful disruption of any meeting of the board, he or she may order the disrupting parties out of the room and subsequently conduct the board's business without them present. If you would like to address our board, please step to the podium.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dan Buffalo, Finance Director for the City of Ukiah. Just two comments I'd like to make. First, thank you for taking this item on that you're going to closed session to discuss. We're really hopeful and eager to move forward with the district on a number of matters, most pressing what we'll discuss later regarding restructuring of our bonds. The first item I wanted to impress upon you is just our willingness and desire to cooperate with this board. It was asked of me at the last meeting and again by some board members to have the city present the district's financial information as of year ending June 30, 2017, as well as current year-to-date information, and present that glorious 1,000-page budget document that I see sitting on the table there. I'd like to do that at your next regular meeting, if that would be okay. If you would agendize that, I'd be happy to bring my entire team and present that to the district. Also, I'd like to just comment before you go into closed session regarding whatever outcome happens from the current litigation between the city and the district. Whatever money is paid or changes hands, it's all going to be ratepayer money. There is no insurance policy to cover this whatsoever. Any money that changes hands is going to be from the district and the city's ratepayers. So just wanted to put that out there because there is no third-party source of funds to cover anything that happens regarding this litigation. So with that, I thank you for your time, and we'll see you after the closed session. Unless there's any questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sanitation Document, City Manager for the City of Ukiah. As you go into deliberations today, I would just ask that you go into it looking at opportunities for collaboration and cooperation. That's certainly the perspective of our city administration and our council is hoping that you'd view the items that you viewed today. The litigation is now approaching $6 million spent from both sides, a total of about $1 million from the city of Ukiah, $5 million on the district side. And I would argue it's just simply too costly to continue this, and that we really need to be looking towards opportunities for cooperation and collaboration and moving the system forward together. So I ask for your consideration. Thank you.
My name's Don Crawford. I'm a district ratepayer. I'm going to reiterate stuff that I've already mentioned, but I think it's important. We had a recent election. It was a huge mandate, and no one can deny that it was a mandate for a change. It was a mandate against this law firm. It was a mandate against this lawsuit. I would remind the board members, you have the power here. This law firm is not your boss. You need to assert your independence. It's been relinquished for the last 4 years. As you get the narrative from this law firm about this lawsuit, remain skeptical. If you look around you, there's city staff here. None of them profit from this. There's only one entity that profits, and you know who it is. So you know where the motivation is. Keep that in mind as you hear their story. As it relates to Mr. Tate, I was very impressed with a new member of this board to go right to the nuts and bolts of the fact that you cannot measure the cost of a contractor if you're going to mesh into everything, travel expenses, lodging. His cost to you is the hours that he puts into service of the board with no other distractions. So if it's $140 an hour and you want to pay him that, that's fine. He lives nearly 600 miles from here. He cannot manage a dynamic utility from that far away. It's not like a retirement fund. There are emergencies that come up. He either moves to the proximity of this community, or he decides to move here or not. That's his choice. If he decides not to, I would seek another person for the job. And I would also beware of anybody that tells you that they work twice as many hours as he's getting paid for. Just give him an annual salary, forget the hourly business, and I would really look closely at whatever contracts you entered into with him. There's a lot of problems there. Thank you.
Maureen Mulhern, City of Ukiah resident, Ukiah Valley Sanitation District, ratepayer, and Vice Mayor of Ukiah. I am sorry that I haven't been able to make it to a meeting in quite some time. It's been challenging with the schedule changing. I hope to get that back on my calendar so I can attend regularly. I just wanted to remind this board that the City Council for the last 3 years, since the election in 2014, has very clearly said to the Sanitation District, we want to work together. We want to figure out an agreement that works for everybody. We want to hold joint meetings so that everybody is in the same room at the same time and can hear the same information. We live in a very small community. There, of course, are games of telephone, and I think that just for the transparency of our ratepayers and our community, our residents, it's very important that we meet together as often as possible and discuss everything in the same room so we're all getting the same information. Thank you.
Anyone else? Before you leave, I'd like to make a comment. Public comments is, a public discussion is now closed. I'd like to make a comment regarding the communications this board has received from the City of Ukiah. Over the past few weeks, District Board and staff have observed an inconsistency from the City of Ukiah in the way that correspondence is transmitted to this district. We do not know what the chain of command is at the city. We are receiving communications from all levels of city staff, including but not limited to the city attorney, the city finance director, the water and sewer director, the city engineer, as well as the city manager. Additionally, emails have been sent to our board district manager by city staff in which only certain of our board members have been CC'd. Ironically, I, as the chair, was not CC'd. Just this morning, an email was sent from city staff containing 2 confidential documents. It was emailed to 14 different email addresses, yet none of them were our lead attorney, Duncan James. I'm at a loss as to why this is happening. If the lack of leadership or intentional chaos trying to be put upon our board. To best manage this situation, as chair of the board, I request the city identifies a liaison for the district. In addition, all correspondence is requested to be directed to Mr. Joe Tate, the district manager, for proper and consistent dissemination to our board. We're going to go into closed session. If you would like to receive an email or a phone call or a text message when our closed session is done, I set a piece of paper by the coffee. Please just write your name and email or however you would like to be contacted, and we'll contact you when closed session is over.
Will there be a lead time as far as when we receive that contact and the startup of the meeting?
Is 10 minutes enough? 15?
I'm one person, I'm not the member of the entire
Is it
public. For me, that would be
possible to-
adequate.
Is it possible to move the agenda item forward since we have
No.
everyone here now?
No.
Because I know in your request to have
we're
here.
keeping the agenda as it is. I'll give you 10 minutes lead time, okay? Text you or email you immediately.
I appreciate that.
And of course, we won't start unless you're here.
Do we have his text, do we have his phone number?
Everybody can write down. Anyone who wants to be contacted, please write it down. Thank you.
Sure, and with all due respect on point of order, if it's a majority of the board that would like to receive or change an agenda item, that is the prerogative of the board to be able to do that.
Okay, I'm sorry, but public expression is over. We have a myriad of people that have been arranged to travel to Ukiah to give us a presentation, and we're going to stick to it. Thank you. You're 5 minutes away. We will call you or email you or text you, whatever you would like. As soon as the room is cleared, we'll begin closed session. We are now back into open session at 6:30 p.m. and this board has given direction to staff. That is the end of the announcement. We have this room, we're supposed to have this room until 6:30, and we've run real overtime. So Joe, were you gonna try to see if we can maintain this room longer, or they said there was someone else coming in at 7?
They are. He wanted us out earlier than this, but I'll go big for 10 more minutes.
We tried to see if we could move this to another location, but I guess according to the Brown Act, we cannot move locations of a continuing meeting.
Well, you could need in the lobby, because they posted the notes on the outside.
Yeah.
We could have it in the
Okay.
lobby.
Well, is the city okay with that?
If the hotel allows it.
Okay, so
I'll
will you go check, Joe, please?
pool.
All right, so
Finally got to the hot
Joe,
tub.
could you please go check on that for us before we, thank you.
Yeah, G2 will be all over.
He said either in here 10 more minutes.
I asked for more time, or you said you can 10 more minutes.
But can we just do the lobby and not worry, they can get the room flipped?
But the PowerPoint.
Right.
So would you like 10 minutes here or lobby, well, they're gonna see if we can do it in the lobby, or lobby 30 minutes.
Is there a PowerPoint involved?
Yeah.
Maybe also handouts
we
that
could
run
do
off the
10
slides.
minutes in here, and then if there's, because I don't think we're gonna be able to just everything in this meeting.
We won't have the questions.
But then we could continue it out in the lobby, and we could be able to do the PowerPoint.
Let's just check with the hotel that we can take over the lobby.
Well, yeah.
Or the
Or if it, do they have a
breakfast-
restaurant?
The breakfast area, yeah, they're little.
Okay.
That was empty.
Okay.
That would be.
We sat in it for a while.
All right,
so.
all right. You can have the sandwiches out there. Sounds good. And I apologize. I'll apologize. We're
Did
I
not
didn't know we were on a
expect-
time crunch in the room.
Director McMillan, and you also said that we could use the breakfast nook for the bond council so
Oh.
that they can have their presentation. I think that's.
So do you want to do 10 minutes here and then there, or what would you like?
Can we move this over there?
No? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So our meeting is continuing to the breakfast nook section of the hotel in 5 minutes. So the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District meeting is back in open session at 6:41 p.m. The next item on our agenda is appointments to working committees. There's been a request to have an ad hoc committee for the bond issue, but we have a standing committee which handles all budget issues. That would be the budget committee. So the bond issue will go to the budget committee. Finance.
I would just point out that that's a Brown Act committee, so if you have that, serve that role, you'll have to post those meetings.
Yeah. And what's
The
the,
standing committee.
Not that we care whether it's confidential, private or not, but it's gonna add some.
As a standing committee, it falls under the Brown Act. It's not a-
Yeah, I'm just pointing, you're gonna have to post them.
We will post and it will be open to the public.
Who's on this?
So we're, so district policy is that the chair makes appointments to the committee and then they're approved by the full board. So the first committee is a finance committee. I've been on the finance committee for 9 years. I would like to be on the finance committee again, appointing myself. Is there anyone from the rest of our board members who would like to be on the finance committee? I'm kind of like a newer board member. I know you have experience on finance as well.
Sure.
But I'd like to mix it up. Director Reed, is that a committee you're interested in being
I
on?
believe Julia's.
Director Bauckham, Director
What's the time commitment?
So the finance committee, all budgets go through the finance committee. Bond issue goes through the finance committee. You meet as needed. It's not a monthly meeting, you meet as needed. So as often or as little as finance, any of the committees need to meet is the obligation.
I'm glad.
Okay, so the, can you make notes for me, please? Because I'm not making notes on this. The appointment to the finance committee is myself and Director Webb. The next committee is the governance committee. This committee deals with all the policies and procedures. We have 38 current policies and procedures. Some of them need updating, and we also need some creative. Is there anyone who would like to serve on the policy on the governance committee? Director Bauckham?
I'd be interested in that.
Director Reed? Okay. Director Bauckham and Director Reed for the governance committee. You're going to have to step up here at some point, Director Marshall. Ernie, here's planning and technical committee. The planning and technical is if we have a project, we hire on engineers, we want to look into putting up a regional wastewater treatment plant. The very, very first step would be to refer it to this committee. Logically, Director Witt, you have the most knowledge to be on the planning and technical committee. Now, granted, that committee hasn't met in a long time because it hasn't had anything to do. But you clearly are the most experienced for that committee. Is that okay? Director Marshall, would you like to serve on that with Director Witt?
Yep.
Okay. So, Director Marshall. Okay. So, must I take a vote? So, I'm going to take a vote of the board now, just ayes and nays. All in favor of the committee appointments that we have just discussed?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? 0. Passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the presentation for potential refunding of the 2006 revenue bonds by the City of Ukiah. So first off, I want to thank you so much for accommodating our board going over schedule. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for coming into this area to give this when I know it's a little noisy. So thank you very much, and we're gracious.
thank you, Madam Chair. Dan Buffalo, Finance Director for the City of Ukiah. We'd like to give a presentation on refunding of the city's 2006 wastewater revenue bond issue, of which we have about $60 million outstanding. and a potential to save over $16 million in interest costs. We're bringing this to you with a great sense of urgency because we have a limited window here in which some of that $16 million could be eroded if we don't hit or don't get to market in time to refinance bonds within the next 30 days. So I have with me Eric Scriven from NHA Advisors. He's the registered municipal financial advisor for the city of Ukiah. They're guiding us through the process, the mechanical process of refunding these bonds. And then Cameron Weiss from the Weiss Law Firm. He is bond and disclosure counsel for the city on this deal. His primary purpose is to ensure that the city is disclosing everything it needs to protect itself and to protect bondholders, and to make sure that the city is following all relative laws and that sort of thing. Eric is going to walk you through the presentation, and Cameron is going to be available for any questions. We'll all be available for questions, but Cameron will be available for any legal questions we have pertaining to the transaction, what needs to occur, that sort of thing. We're going to talk timelines, we're going to talk about milestones. We'll talk a little bit about the purpose of the ad hoc, because this is going to be the same presentation we're giving to City Council tomorrow night, at which time we're also going to request the City Council for an ad hoc to work with the ad hoc that the district is putting forward. We also have the entire city team here to answer any questions related to bond refunding, what it means for timelines, what it means for the district, what the district needs to do, what the city needs to do, and so forth. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric to walk you through the slides and the presentation, and then we'll go to Q&A from there.
Hi, this is the same presentation you saw last week, except we changed, based on the feedback, some good questions in that meeting and some additional information. We did go out to an RFQ for underwriters and got really some great market intelligence. So we've integrated that market intelligence into the slides. This slide is identical to what you saw on Wednesday night in the handout we gave. Like Dan said, there's $60 million outstanding. We tried to lay out how, the old documents say how it goes. The bottom line is the district pays about 53% of the debt service, the city pays about 47%, and those are the reasons why. The final maturity, as you all know, is 2036. It's about $4.9 million of debt service each year to 2036. The rate is 4.45 currently, and that's the average rate. The rating as of January 2017 is Baa2, which is very low for a utility. And current market rates, that was validated. That number remained the same. That was validated in some of the figures that we got from the underwriting proposals that we received late last week. So that number is a good number, fairly good number for a good utility credit.
Why would the current rating be so low?
We put the rating report in here, and it was in the last one too. We just wanted, I copied the rating report right from Moody's, and it's notable that, the litigation, as you would imagine.
Did you say that though we're currently rated at that?
Baa2. No, the bonds. It's just on the wastewater credit. It's not on the city. It's not on the redevelopment agency. It's strictly on the $60 million outstanding bond issue.
But that was prior to the lawsuit, though. So
No, that's with the lawsuit. It was an A category credit. I think it was A1 or A2.
so they changed it.
They reduced it because of the litigation.
Okay.
So this is probably the important page for everyone to know, and it's kind of a little bit of legal jargon. This is an older deal, kind of old terms. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I know you'll get to this eventually with your deadline for having this decision. Is this 3% going to remain as of that deadline? I mean, do we have a rate lock on this or not?
We can't have a rate lock. You can do your own research, but there's a lot of supply, a lot of bonds coming in the market right now because there was a mad dash because of tax reform, right? And there's a good indication that January, like in the last 19 out of the last 20 years, as you probably know, has been a very good a month for selling bonds. So this 3%, you know, I don't know for sure. I can
That's
never
very
tell
good,
you
and I just
certain,
wanted to
but
understand.
we feel pretty confident that with a category rating and insurance, we're going to be in that area. We had to pick a number, and that's pretty close to the right number. It could be a little higher, it could be a little lower, but it seems like that's the number to use for comparison, which was validated in some of the intelligence we got last week. Okay? So this is probably the most important part. We can't call the bonds on any date so that we'd have complete flexibility. There's certain windows. There's 2 windows per year. It's a 60-day window. You have to give the old bond owners 30 days notice to call their bonds away from them. So the 2 payment dates are March 1 and September 1. So you have to give them 30 days before March 1 and September 1. The other thing that has occurred is you cannot have an advance refunding, and by definition, prior to the call date, and Cameron can speak more clearly, it's 90 days. You cannot call a bond earlier than 90 days before that call date, that redemption date, the March 1 or the September 1. So that gives you 2 60-day windows each year. The 60-day windows this year, the current one started in this month, December, and ends at the end of January. And then the next one is June and July for the September 1 date. So that's really, you know, it's in the documents. That's the reason why we're talking about a little bit of a speedier process. Okay, so we have more assumptions here. We added 2, I think. We had 2 last time, but this is a little bit more detail from what we got from the underwriters. The first one, the basic assumptions, is a straight refi with the same maturity, and we have to use the old construction monies per bond counsel's opinion. You have to put that into the new deal to lower the size of the new transaction. Scenario 1 is the same scenario 1 you saw before. It's the A-rated but insured transaction. And there's a surety policy that you can have instead of cash-funded reserve. And that's important because we'll note in scenario 3 that that's different. Scenario 2 is, and scenario 1 was lawsuit is withdrawn. So we're highly confident that with that withdrawal, you're going to get the A underlying rating and assurance. Scenario 2, lawsuit remains, so we're going to have the Baa2 rating underlying. We don't see it going away because it was just recently rated in January. So Baa2 underlying, if we were able to get insurance, and there was varying opinions. A couple of the underwriters thought it was kind of a rolling the dice. One underwriter thought there was a better chance. So we present this scenario, and you have a lower rating, but you get insurance, and you still get that surety policy for the reserve instead of having to fund it with cash. That's very important for savings. Scenario 3 is the lawsuit remains outstanding, and we cannot get in bond insurance. So, but we still are closing in January. It's assuming that we're doing the transaction in this window right now. That transaction, you have to use cash to create the credit necessary to sell a Baa2 bond without insurance. So in the last scenario is the one that we saw before, which was assuming everything's fine, like scenario 1, where the litigation is withdrawn, you have the underlying rating, you have the insurance, you have the reserve surety, but you missed your window, so you sell bonds 6 months down the road. So no one knows where interest rates are going. I can't tell you with certainty. I'd be a very rich man if I knew that rates were going up for sure. But Bloomberg has said that they expect 3 increases for the Fed rates, and things are not directly tied all the time. But it seems like it's reasonable to show a scenario where you show 50 basis points, not the full 75, but an increase of 50 basis points because inflation and whatever else is going up, just to show that scenario. So we show nothing else changes except for the date of the sale is 6 months later, and we show 50 basis points increase, a half a point increase in rates. That's the only change. Okay, this is the Moody's report. It's in, I'm not going to go through it. There's 2 pages. I copied it directly from the report. So these are the, this is the summary. So the 3 scenarios, in this window: no lawsuit, A, underlying rating, that's the base case. With the lawsuit and insurance, but a lower underlying rating and a higher cost for insurance. Those 2 things impact the savings. The savings are lower by about $2.4 million, given the rates that we saw in these underwriting proposals we received last week. With the lawsuit, no insurance, so we have to fund a cash-funded reserve. That really harms the savings because you have to use cash as your reserve. You have a higher interest rate. You don't have to pay the insurance premium. You have a higher interest rate, and you have cash that you have to put into a low-yielding investment, so you're negative on that investment for 18 years until the bonds mature. So that harms scenario 3 to the tune of $4.4 million lower savings than your base case. And then September 1 redemption, the case 4, which is very similar to, it's very similar to the first scenario, with the exception that you have 6 months later and you have higher interest rate just as an assumption, and that shows about $4 million reduction, and that's based off of interest rates that we received in the underwriting proposals that we received late last week after I met with you before. So, are there any questions? And I know that one of the directors had asked what you thought the spread would be on interest rates, and I didn't have a precise figure, but I knew that the underwriting proposals were coming in. They came in on that day, actually. I hadn't had a chance to evaluate them. And these are based on the interest rates that they gave us. This is the base case, 2.95, which is close to the 3% that we thought last week as the base case. With the lawsuit, so the lower underlying rate, you lose about 40 basis points. You're losing a little bit more, probably about 55 basis points from the base case, so about 0.5 point. And this one is about 0.5 point as well. So those are more precise figures. I think I said 0.5 point, 0.75 point. I wasn't really sure. So these are pretty good figures based on real market intelligence. Any questions?
Eric?
Yes, sir.
Not on the presentation or on the numbers, just some background for me. How long have you been working with the city now?
What, a month?
Cameron?
Say about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did some consulting sometime in the past, but no, not done any bonds.
Yeah.
For the
Not on
city.
this.
Yeah. So this is the detail behind those summary pages. We wanted to show the cash flows. You can see the cash funded reserve. It earns interest over the period of time that the bonds are outstanding, and it pays the last year's payment. But overall, having to fund a cash funded reserve harms the cash flow savings and the net present value. So this is the schedule. We are determined, we accepted underwriting proposals last week, and we're working very hard to pull together all the credit information, the legal information, to put together disclosure so that we can engage the rating agencies and the bond insurance companies as soon as possible. And it's a tough time of year to do that, but we're determined to get everything we can to be ready so that if it's determined to move forward, we're going to be ready to present a transaction to the city for them to approve on their January 17th meeting. There is some deadlines, though, as far as knowing, because we have to, when we ask for a credit rating, they ask for the final sort of package, And what's the package? Is it with litigation or is it without? So that's, that's why there is that deadline, because at some point we need to tell the rating agencies and the bond insurance companies what's the deal. And they will rate it and price it according to that. So that's why we have that January 12th. That's really a best estimate, probably the drop dead date on when we need to know.
And actions for acceptance have to be done at a regular meeting of the city council, correct? We can't do these under special meetings?
To approve the deal?
As far as the bond transaction, though, this particular transaction would be at a regular meeting, a special meeting, sorry.
Okay, good.
If it were done through the JPA, it would have to be a regular meeting, but the city council has the authority to do it as a special for bond authorization.
Okay.
But, okay, having said that, the January 17th is really the last date that we can really get after city council. If they decide to approve the transaction, we then have to put the disclosure document, the preliminary official statement, and these underwriters are already making it very clear they want time to market this transaction so that they can do their job. They're very concerned, quite honestly, about selling this because it's got a story. Even if the litigation goes away, they really want to understand the story to sell it because it's kind of been a moving target for some time. So. Okay. That's it. There's no more.
All right. What questions can we answer that haven't already been asked? Any questions about what the district's role is in this transaction? The debt's issued in the city's name, but there is strong legal covenants binding the district and the city to ensure that debt service is met and that sort of thing. Our approach is we just want to do a straight refinance. We want to leave the term the same. We want to leave the mechanisms the same for how the city pays the debt service and how the district pays the city for the debt service. But that's a decision that the board needs to make as to do they want to make any changes, and the city council. And that was something that we hope the ad hocs would help work out the nuts and bolts on. We would probably meet pretty quickly to get there to make sure that we're all on the same page, and then both ad hocs would go back to their respective bodies and inform them of where we are in the process and get feedback. So there's a number of things that we have to, a number of milestones in addition to dates that we have to meet and hit to get there. But our approach really is trying to do it as simple as possible. Let's just do a straight refinance, leave everything as it is, and move forward that way. But that may not be the preference of this board or the city council. That would be our recommendation.
And you're taking what's left that's in the bank currently and paying it back to the bondholders before you sell the new refinance?
Yeah, so it effectively lowered the amount we're borrowing on the
So would the district's proportion of that $4.7 million be proportionately credited to the district owing on the newly refinanced
Yes.
bond?
So the total pie after that would be appropriately credited for each part.
If there are no more questions? No? Did you have something to say?
No, I was here to answer any questions
Oh,
you might have.
okay. If the presentation's over and I don't see any hands, thank you for your time and thank you again so much for accommodating our meeting that went over and doing this. So we are now adjourned at 7:05 p.m. Thank you.